Good morning. It's Thursday, September 22nd, and I don't know if you remember my feelings about the American Rescue Plan, where the government gave out checks, $1,400, $2,800 for two, to many people who didn't need those checks, because the government, in their infinite wisdom, didn't take the time to consider exactly who should get this money and how they should be able to eliminate those who really didn't need the money. And I am a member of that community that really didn't need the money, but I got $2,800 anyhow. And I know many other people who didn't need the money and got $2,800 or $1,400 or whatever the amount was. But it came out to millions, hundreds of millions of dollars probably. But now I read about this horrendous scam in which $240 million was distributed to something like 50 so-called charities. And I don't know what the government was doing to see who was collecting this money. Let me tell you about this scam. This is a monumental scam engineered by a woman named Amy Bock, that's B-O-C-K, the founder of a nonprofit group called Feeding Our Future. And she and her group were relied upon by the state of Minnesota to watchdog and stop fraud at the feeding sites. Now, what exactly are the feeding sites? I'll explain to you right now. Feeding sites are locations where children are fed. And they are fed by groups that set these sites up and then send lists of names to the government, names and ages of children to the government. And the government then pays for those meals somehow by sending checks to these people, to these so-called organizations. Well, it turns out that these organizations did not exist, and these children did not exist. And Amy Bock and her organization were responsible for monitoring the activities of these non-existent feeding sites. This was the largest scam, the largest fraud uncovered in any pandemic relief program, even larger than the sloppiness of the American Rescue Plan. The scope of this scheme was amazing because it involved creating receipts for over 125 million meals. In fact, one of these conspirators told the government that he had fed 5,000 children a day in a second-story apartment. And these people, somebody would take a look at that. That's amazing. How big does an organization have to be to feed 5,000 children a day? That's like a college. That's like a college cafeteria. So what is the government doing? They're asleep at the switch. You got people who are pissing our money away and not paying attention because it's not their money. Easy come, easy go. And they're relying on Amy Bock to track all of these units for them. So this scheme, they weren't even trying to disguise what they were doing. They were using a website called List of Random Names to create fake lists of children they could charge for feeding. They use a number generating program to produce ages for the children they were supposedly feeding, which changed the ages of these children wildly each time the group updated its list of non-existent children. So who's watching the switch? These people are sending in this list of the same names, the ages change. They got a website called List of Fraud Names, and nobody in the government catches any of this. For how long? For how long was this going on? 6 months, 8 months, a year? Who knows? It doesn't mention that. So this scheme would pulled in millions and millions of dollars per week because government officials had decided to relax their oversight of this particular feeding program during the pandemic because they felt they had a trusted insider, right? That insider was Amy Bock. Amy Bach put sort of handwriting on the wall and said, I'm going to make millions here. And they won't even catch me. She never thought about being caught. She was being relied upon by the state of Minnesota. She was supposed to watch all these feeding sites. But she didn't do that. She did the opposite. She helped them exploit the government. And she got a kickback from over 200 new feeding operations that she knew were submitting fake or inflated invoices. So in some cases they actually did feed somebody, but the invoices were inflated. So when the government of Governor Tim Walz, a Democrat, raised questions, you know what Amy Bach did? She filed a lawsuit accusing the state officials of discriminating against her group's largely East African clientele. So she pulls the racism card out of the air to protect her scheme. And the FBI comes out with this great statement. These people weren't interested in feeding our future. All they were interested in is feeding their own gluttony. Now let me tell you something. The government screwed up badly. They put their trust in a person that was unreliable. There were hundreds of millions of dollars at stake and nobody was paying attention. And that's a shanda. How can we manage this country when we piss away $250 million because people are submitting names and ages of children that don't even exist? When you look at this, you can understand why this country is in such bad shape. This is an example of a program that is supposed to do good, but nobody's watching the store, so to speak. And when they got after this person, or several people, one of them answered the questions and then took a one-way ticket to Ethiopia. So I leave you with that this morning. A major screw-up. $240 million. That should come out of the salary of the people who are supposed to protect us. I leave you with that thought this morning. Bye.